Hello everyone. In today's Cretaceous profile, what we're doing is of a ornithopod from the early Cretaceous, and which is often being cannon fodder of a certain Cretaceous has no defense against it. But over the years, people have always looked down upon these ornithopods being defenseless, but but there are large animals the ornithopods had. Their tails, weight, and their front limbs. And no, we're not talking about Tenontosaurus or Tenontosaurus. No. In today's video, we're going to be talking about an early Cretaceous ornithopod, and that is Meet Tenontosaurus. Is a genus of iguanodontine ornithopod dinosaur. This genus is known from the late Aptian to Alban, sorry for mispronouncing it, in the ages of the early Cretaceous period of western North America. It dated between 115 to 108 million years ago. The first Tenontosaurus fossil was found in the Big Horn County, Montana, by an American Museum of Natural History AMNH expedition in 1903. Subsequent digs in the same area during the late 1930s unearthed 18 more specimens, and 4 specimens were found during the 1940s. Despite the large number of fossil specimens, the animal was not named or scientifically described during this time, though Barmy and Brown of AMNH gave it the informal name Tenontosaurus. During the 1960s, Yale University began an extensive long-term dig in the Big Horn Basin area, Clovery Formation of Montana and Wyoming. The expedition led by John Ostrom, whose team discovered more than 40 new specimens. Following his expedition, Ostrom became the first to describe and named the animal, calling it Tenontosaurus. Since 1970, many more Tenontosaurus specimens have been reported, both from the Clovery and other geological formations, including Antler Formation in Oklahoma, Polexi Formation of Texas, Wang Formation of Idaho, Cedar Mountain Formation of Utah, and Ardennal Formation of Maryland. Tenontosaurus was a medium-sized ornithopod, with both species weighing about 1,000 kilograms, 2,200 pounds. In 2016, it was estimated that Tenontosaurus tilletii, sorry for mispronouncing it, would have been 6 meters, 20 feet, and weigh about 600 kilograms, 1,300 pounds. But in 2020, estimated that this species would have weighed about 971, 1,019 kilograms, 2,141 to 2,000.2 247 pounds. Also, the the other second species, Tenontosaurus dawsi, would have been 7 meters or 23 feet long and weigh 1,000 kilograms, 2,200 pounds. Adult length estimated among other researchers between 7 and 8 meters, 23 and 26 feet. Although they are not the largest ornithopod in the early Cretaceous, Tenontosaurus was a facultative quadruped, capable of assuming either a bipedal or quadrupedal stance. It may have been used a quadrupedal stance while feeding, but was incapable of rapid quadrupedal movement. Tenontosaurus resembles quadrupedal ornithischians in having a tibia that is shorter than the femur and an intermortal. Sorry for mispronouncing it. Anyway, possess on an ula, but it resembles bipedal ornithischians in having a relatively narrow pelvis and a pendant fourth trotter and the hand slash front foot shows a mixture of the traits associated with bipeds and quadrupeds. It retains narrow claws, unlike the hoof-like from other quadrupedal ornithischians. Has a short metacarpus as a bipedal hypsilophodon and retains grasping adaptations. However, the flagellae are also shortened as an adaptation for weight bearing. An analysis of overall proportions and center of mass of Tenontosaurus found it to be quadruped, although the analysis only distinguished bipeds from quadrupeds without including the facultative bipedal category. For its classification, Tenontosaurus was originally classified as the Iguanodontae family, although subsequent authors challenged this classification and propose it to be belonging to Hypsilophodontae. Subsequent phylogenetic analysis have found Tenontosaurus to be indeterminate between Hypsilophodon in like taxa and Iguanodon-like taxa as a non-gyromorph iguanodont. The praise phylogenetic position of Tenontosaurus varies between studies, with some studies finding it to be more closely related to gyromorphs than rhabdodontids. Some studies finding it to be a sixth sister taxon of the clade, uniting rhabdodontids and gyromorphs. Now, for its diet, the Tenontosaurus' diet and ecosystem was dominated by ferns and tree ferns, cycads, and possibly primitive flowering plants. Larger plants and trees were represented by geosperms such as conifers and ginkgos trees. Tenontosaurus was a low browser, and an adult would have had a maximum browsing height of about 3 meters 10 feet if adapted of a bipedal stance. This restricted Tenontosaurus, especially juveniles, to eating low-growing ferns and shrubs. Its powerful U-shaped beak and the angle cutting surface of its teeth, however, meant it was not limited to which part of the plant it consumed. Leaves, wood, and even fruit may have formed part of its diet. And teeth and the number of skeletons belonging to carnivorous theropod like Deinonychus have often been found associated with Tenontosaurus remains. Tenontosaurus specimens have been found at over 50 sites, and 14 of those also contain Deinonychus remains. According to one 1995 study, only 6 sites containing Deinonychus fossils contained no trace of Tenontosaurus, and Deinonychus remains are only rarely found associated with other potential prey like Sauropoda. In all, 20% of Tenontosaurus fossils are found in close proximity to Deinonychus. And several other scientists suggested that this implies Deinonychus was a major predator of Tenontosaurus. Adult Deinonychus, however, were much smaller than the adult Tenontosaurus, and it is unlikely a single Deinonychus would have been capable of attacking a fully grown Tenontosaurus. Because, really, a predator would think twice before messing with or hunting this herbivore alone. While some scientists have suggested that Deinonychus must have therefore have been a pack hunter, this view has been challenged based on both a supposed lack of evidence for coordinated hunting, rather than mobbing behavior as in most like modern birds and reptiles, though crocodilians have been documented to hunt cooperatively on occasion, as well as evidence that Deinonychus may have been cannibalizing each other as well as the Tenontosaurus in a feeding frenzy. Now, it is likely that Deinonychus favored juvenile Tenontosaurus, and that when Tenontosaurus reached a certain size, it passed out of its range as food sources for small predators, though they may be scavenged. Larger individuals or preyed on adults that were sick or injured or old or young. The fact that most Tenontosaurus remains found with Deinonychus or half-grown individuals supports this view. It also lived in the same area as the large predator like Cretaceous. And the presence of medullary bone tissues in the thigh bone and shin bone of the specimen on one specimen of Tenontosaurus indicates this tissue today only found in birds that were laid eggs in reproduction. Additionally, like T-Rex and Allosaurus, two other dinosaurs have known to been produce medullary bone. The dinosaur individual was not a full adult size upon her death at 8 years old. Because of the theropod line of dinosaur that includes Allosaurus and T-Rex diverged from the line that led to Tenontosaurus very early in the evolution of dinosaurs. This suggests that dinosaurs in general produced medullary tissue and reached reproductive maturity before maximum size. A histological study showed that Tenontosaurus grew quickly in early life and during subadult ontogeny, but grew very slowly in the years approaching maturity, unlike other iguanodontines. Now, remember what I said about that they're defenseless? Now, there's one thing that people are missing about it. Look at the body, mainly its tail. It had an unusually long, broad tail, which is its back was stiffed with a network of bone tendons. Its tail can be used as defense against, well, small predators and even juvenile Cretaceous. And its front limbs. While there are no studies that it could kick with its front limbs or punch it or slash anything. Like I said, there are no studies or even any other research about its front limbs if it could kick or slash at anything, or it had a sharp claws. But throughout the Clovery Formation, Tenontosaurus is by far the most common vertebrate, 5 times more abundant than the next common ankylosaur, Sauropoda, in the arid little sheep mudstone member. Tenontosaurus is the only herbivorous dinosaur, and it shared its environment with other animals, like the common predator Deinonychus, as well as an indeterminate species of Allosauroid, and crocodiles, other crocodilians, after the major climate shift at the beginning of the Haim's member in the mid-Albian age. Several more dinosaurs entered the region, including the common ornithopod, Sunferosaurus, Microvenator, and an indeterminate species of titanosaur form in Ornithomimid. The ecological community in a tropic stage also include small mammals like Gobicodon, turtles, and lungfish species. The ecological community was similar to other regions, with dinosaurs like Tenontosaurus and Deinonychus as the most common large vertebrates The Antlers Formation stretches from southwest Arkansas through southeastern Oklahoma and into northeastern Texas. This geological formation has not been dated radiometrically. Scientists have used bios- biostratigraphic data, and the fact that it shared several of the same genera as the Trinity group of Texas. To summarize, that this formation was laid down during the Albian A stage of the early Cretaceous, approximately 110 million years ago. The area preserved this formation was largely floodplains that drained into the shallow inland sea several years, many million years later. This sea would expand to the north, becoming the Western Interior Seaway and dividing North America into two for nearly the entire Cretaceous period. For the paleoenvironment of that formation consists of tropical and subtropical forests, floodplains, river deltas, coastal swamps, bayous, and lagoons, probably similar to the modern-day Louisiana, and an Antlers Formation that dinosaurs lived in. It shares a habitat with other animals, like Astrodon, Poseidon, and Cretaceous, which was likely an apex predator in that region. The most common dinosaurs in the paleo environment preserved in the formation is Tenontosaurus. Other vertebrates present at the time. Tenontosaurus includes amphibians, reptiles, cartilaginous fish, ray-finned fish, turtles, and possibly indeterminate bird remains are known from the Antlers Formation. During the Albian, much of North America was blanketed by vast forests composed of diverse plant life. The canopy was dominated by trees like pines, redwoods, conifers, and many more. And the first floor supported a ridge of understudied cycads, horsetails, forked ferns, spleenworts, and many more. In the Clovery Formation of Montana and Wyoming, Tenontosaurus remains are common in the two distant rocks units. The more ancient little sheep mudstone member and the more recent Himes member. The oldest part of the formation, the Pyre colomerate, contains no Tenontosaurus fossils, and they only appear in the uppermost, most recent part of the little sheep mudstone member. Catherine Forrester, in 1984 paper on ecology of Tenontosaurus, used this as evidence that Tenontosaurus populations did not arrive in the Big Horn Basin area until the time of the late little sheep mudstone member. At the time first appeared Tenontosaurus in Wyoming and Montana. The region climate was arid to semi-arid dry, with seasonal periods of rainfall and occasional droughts. However, during the period of the million years, a few million years, the climate in the region shifted to one increased rainfall and the environment to become subtropical to tropical with river deltas, floodplains and forests with swampy inlets reminiscent of modern Louisiana, though marked dry seasons persisted to create savanna-like environments as well. The change in rainfall levels is likely due to the advancing shoreline of Skull Creek Seaway, the cycle of the Western Interior Seaway, which later in the Cretaceous period would completely divided North America. This dramatic shift in the climate corresponded, sorry for mispronouncing it again, with an apparent increase rather than decrease in the abundance of Tenontosaurus. This shows Tenontosaurus to have likely to been a remarkably adaptable animal, which persisted for a long span of time in one area despite changes in environments. They could have persisted long enough, but unfortunately with the Western Interior Seaway, they couldn't adapt very quickly. And that's it for this video. Like and subscribe, and see you later, guys.